You think these cuffs scare me? I'm innocent. I was framed. You have to believe me. Find the real criminal before it's too late. I won't stop fighting.
You have to believe me. I didn't do it. I'm innocent. These cuffs, they're wrong. Let me go! Please, just listen to me.
You think these can hold me? I've broken stronger chains. You hear me? I'll be free. And when I am, you'll pay.
You can't hold me! Let me out of these! I won't be silenced!
A racist police officer is patrolling a wealthy neighborhood when he spots a black man on a walk. The officer assumes the man must be up to no good and arrests him for no reason. Afterwards, the officer is informed that he arrested a high-ranking general in the United States Army. General Donovan Pierce strolled down one of these tree-lined streets, his footsteps soft on the pavement. Donovan was tall with a strong athletic build that hinted at his years of service in the military. Despite his casual appearance, there was an air of authority about him, something in his posture and the way he carried himself. Donovan had been in this neighborhood many times before, though not everyone knew it. He owned a house just a few blocks away, one that he had purchased as a quiet retreat from the demands of his career. This was where he came to think, to unwind, and to escape the rigors of his responsibilities. He decided to take a walk, as he often did, enjoying the sun and the quiet of the streets. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows, and Donovan continued his walk, unaware of the events that would soon shatter this quiet routine. For now, he was just another person enjoying the simplicity of an afternoon, finding peace in the ordinary moments that life had to offer. Officer Brent Callahan adjusted his rearview mirror as he drove slowly down the street, his eyes scanning the neighborhood like a hawk searching for prey. His patrol car rolled along at a crawl, the engine purring softly. It was a routine he had done countless times before, ensuring the streets of this affluent suburb stayed safe and orderly. Callahan took pride in his work, believing himself to be the line of defense against anything that might disturb the peace of the community. The neighborhood was quiet, almost too quiet. Callahan's hand rested on the steering wheel, fingers tapping absent-mindedly to a tune he could barely hear over the car's hum. He watched the familiar sights pass by, children's bicycles leaning against fences, gardeners trimming hedges, and the occasional jogger or dog walker. Everything seemed normal. Then he saw him. A black man walking alone down the street, casual as you please. Callahan's eyes narrowed as he took in the man's appearance. He was tall, muscular, wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans. His stride was relaxed, and he did not appear to be in any hurry. There was nothing particularly alarming about him, but something about the sight set off alarms in Callahan's mind. He did not recognize the man, and that alone was enough to make him suspicious. "Who are you?" Callahan muttered under his breath as he kept his eyes on the man. "What are you doing here?" Callahan had been on the force long enough to trust his instincts, and his instincts were telling him something was off. This was an affluent, predominantly white neighborhood. In Callahan's experience, anyone who did not fit the usual mold was often up to no good. Maybe the guy was lost, or maybe he was scoping out houses. Either way, Callahan was not going to just drive by without finding out more. He slowed the car even further, keeping pace with the man's walk. As he passed, he saw the man look over at the car briefly, his expression calm and indifferent. Callahan's jaw tightened. That calmness irked him. It was as if the man was not concerned about his presence at all, as if he belonged there. Callahan did not like it. He made a quick decision, pulling his patrol car over to the curb and parking. He stepped out, adjusting his belt, and the radio clipped to his shoulder. The man continued walking, seemingly unaware of the officer's approach. Callahan felt a flicker of annoyance. He raised his voice as he moved toward the man. "Hey, you there," Callahan called out. The man stopped and turned to face Callahan. He looked directly at him, his eyes steady and unflinching. "Yes, officer. Is there a problem?" he asked. Callahan did not answer immediately. Instead, he took a moment to assess the man up close. The man's face was calm, his stance relaxed, as if he did not see Callahan as a threat. That only heightened Callahan's suspicion. "What are you doing here?" Callahan demanded, his tone sharp. "Just taking a walk," the man replied evenly. "Is that not allowed?" Callahan frowned. He did not like the man's tone, so calm and unbothered. It made him feel like he was not in control of the situation, and Callahan liked being in control. He took a step closer, squaring his shoulders. "I'm going to need to see some ID, Callahan said, his voice carrying authority. The man raised an eyebrow, but did not move. Why am I being accused of something? Callahan's patience was wearing thin. This is a private neighborhood. We do not usually see people like you around here. I have the right to question anyone who seems out of place. The man sighed softly, and Callahan's annoyance grew. I live nearby, the man said. Just a few blocks over. I'm not doing anything wrong, officer. I am simply enjoying a walk. Show me some ID, Callahan repeated, his hand moving instinctively toward his belt where his radio and other tools of authority hung. He was not in the mood for resistance. His training had taught him that control was everything in these situations. The man reached into his pocket slowly and deliberately, pulling out his wallet. He held it up, showing Callahan his identification. Callahan took it, glancing at the name and address. His eyes flickered with surprise for a brief moment. The address was indeed a local one, but something still did not sit right with him. Maybe it was the man's calm demeanor, or maybe it was just Callahan's own sense of duty kicking in. I have never seen you around here before, Callahan said, his tone still firm. How long have you lived here? I live nearby, the man replied. I am not out much, usually working. I do not see why this is necessary. Callahan felt the heat rising in his face. He did not like being questioned, especially not by someone who seemed to think they were above suspicion. His grip tightened on the man's ID. Necessary or not, I have a job to do, Callahan snapped. We have had reports of suspicious activity in the area. I need to make sure everything is in order. The man remained silent, his eyes still locked on Callahan. There was no fear in his expression, no sign of backing down. Callahan hated that. He was the one in charge here, not some stranger who thought he could walk wherever he pleased. He had to assert his authority. Stay right here, Callahan ordered. Do not move. He turned, heading back to his patrol car to run the ID. His heart was beating a little faster now, a mix of irritation and something else. Something he did not want to admit was doubt. As he reached the car, Callahan cast another glance at the man, who stood quietly waiting. The unease in Callahan's chest grew. Something about this whole situation did not feel right, but he pushed that thought aside. He was an officer of the law, and it was his job to keep this neighborhood safe. He could not afford to second-guess himself, not now. Callahan sat in his patrol car, eyes on the man through the rearview mirror as he started typing the man's details into the system. A sense of unease lingered, hanging in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. Donovan Pierce stood on the sidewalk, watching as Officer Callahan walked back to his patrol car. He felt the weight of the officer's scrutiny even from a distance. The street was still, the quiet broken only by the faint chirping of birds and the hum of Callahan's patrol car. Donovan kept his breathing steady, maintaining his calm demeanor. He had nothing to hide. He knew he had not done anything wrong, but the way Callahan looked at him, the questions and the demand for his ID, it all made his muscles tense. Donovan's mind replayed the exchange, the officer's tone, his insistence that Donovan was out of place, the way his hand had hovered near his belt as if ready for anything. Donovan knew that look. He had seen it many times during his service. A mix of suspicion and authority often directed at those considered different or out of place. It was a look that could escalate into something much worse if not handled carefully. Donovan glanced around. A few people were watching from a distance now, peering through windows or pausing in their yards, curious about what was happening. A middle-aged man with a garden hose in hand stared openly, water spilling onto the sidewalk. A woman walking her dog had stopped, her phone out as if ready to record. Donovan met her eyes briefly, and she looked away. He took a slow, deep breath. This was the last thing he had wanted. A scene, a confrontation. Callahan was still in his car, tapping away at his computer. Donovan knew the officer was running his ID, checking his records, trying to find something to justify this stop. Donovan had seen it before, the fishing for reasons when there were not any to begin with. It did not sit well with him, but he also knew reacting with anger would not help. Patience, he reminded himself. Let it play out. Callahan emerged from the patrol car, the ID still in his hand. His face was a mask of irritation. He walked back over to Donovan, stopping just a foot away, standing a little taller, trying to assert dominance. Your records are clean, Callahan said, almost as if he was disappointed, but that does not explain why you are here. I already told you, Donovan replied calmly. I live here. I am out for a walk. That is all. Callahan's eyes narrowed. And I told you we have had reports of suspicious activity. It is my job to check things out. Donovan kept his gaze steady. I understand that, officer, but I am not causing any trouble. I am just walking. Callahan's frustration was evident now. His face flushed slightly, a frown creasing his forehead. He glanced around, noticing the small audience they had attracted. He did not like being challenged, especially not in front of others. Donovan could sense the shift, the subtle edge creeping into the officer's stance. "Look," Callahan said, his voice lowering, "we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. You tell me exactly what you are doing here, or I take you in for further questioning. It is up to you." Donovan felt a flicker of anger, but kept it in check. He knew this tactic, intimidation, pushing until the other person cracked. "I have told you everything you need to know," Donovan replied evenly. "You are making a mistake." Callahan's jaw tightened. "The only mistake I see is someone thinking they can walk around this neighborhood without being questioned. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do I need to escalate this?" Donovan's patience was wearing thin. He had tried to reason, tried to explain, but Callahan was not listening. This was not about safety. It was about control, about asserting authority over someone he perceived as a threat, based solely on appearance. Donovan glanced at the people watching, then back at Callahan. "Officer, I am not resisting," Donovan said, keeping his voice steady, "but I also know my rights. You have no grounds to arrest me. I have done nothing wrong." Callahan's eyes flashed with anger. "I will decide what is wrong and what is right," he snapped. Without warning, he reached out, grabbing Donovan by the arm. "You are coming with me." Donovan tensed as Callahan's grip tightened, his training kicking in. He could easily overpower the officer, but he knew that would only escalate the situation further. He let Callahan pull him toward the patrol car, feeling the roughness of the cuffs being snapped onto his wrists. "Is this really necessary?" Donovan asked. His voice calm but firm, Callahan ignored him, shoving Donovan toward the back of the car. "Get in," he barked. Donovan complied, sitting down in the back seat, his hands cuffed behind him. He looked out at the gathering onlookers, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. The woman with the dog had her phone raised, recording the entire scene. Donovan hoped that would be enough to keep things from getting worse. As Callahan slammed the door shut, Donovan felt a wave of frustration wash over him. He had come out for a peaceful walk, something to clear his mind, and now he was sitting in the back of a patrol car, treated like a criminal, all because of the color of his skin and the assumptions that came with it. He could hear Callahan radioing in, his voice tense as he explained the situation to the station. Donovan leaned back in the seat, taking another deep breath. He knew this was not over, not yet. And as much as he wanted to fight back, he knew he had to stay calm, to keep his composure, because this was not just about him. It was about something much bigger, something he had faced his whole life. And now, sitting in the back of a patrol car with his hands cuffed, Donovan was reminded that the fight for respect and equality was far from over. The ride to the police station was silent, but the tension was palpable. Donovan sat in the back of the patrol car, his wrists still bound by the cold metal of the handcuffs. He kept his eyes forward, ignoring the occasional glance Officer Callahan threw at him through the rear-view mirror. The scenery blurred by, the tree-lined streets of the neighborhood giving way to the busy roads leading into town. Donovan's mind was racing, not with fear, but with a sense of disbelief at how quickly a simple walk had turned into this. Callahan pulled into the station parking lot filled with police vehicles. He stepped out, yanking open the back door and grabbing Donovan by the arm. The station was buzzing with activity, officers moving in and out, talking on radios, carrying files. As Callahan led Donovan inside, a few officers glanced their way, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Callahan ignored them, marching Donovan down the hallway toward the holding area. Donovan felt the eyes of the other officers on him, heard the murmur of whispers. It was not the first time he had been the subject of scrutiny, but it was the first time it had happened like this, on the wrong side of the law he had sworn to protect. Donovan had spent his life upholding order, defending his country, and now he was being paraded through a police station like a common criminal. Callahan pushed open a door to a small room, guiding Donovan inside. It was a typical holding room, bare walls, a table and 2 chairs. Callahan motioned for Donovan to sit. As Donovan complied, Callahan stood by the door, arms crossed, a self-satisfied look on his face. "You will stay here until we get this sorted out," Callahan said, his tone clipped. Donovan met his gaze evenly. "What exactly are we sorting out, officer? You have my ID. You know where I live. What more do you need?" Callahan's eyes hardened. "I need to know why you were in that neighborhood. Why you thought you could just walk around like you own the place." Donovan sighed, his frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I was not doing anything wrong. I live in that neighborhood. I have done nothing to warrant this treatment." Callahan's face flushed. "People like you do not just walk around neighborhoods like that without a reason," he snapped. "You could have been casing houses, looking for an opportunity." Donovan's eyes narrowed. People like me, he repeated. What exactly do you mean by that, officer? Callahan's jaw tightened, but he did not respond. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence, the tension thick in the air. Donovan could sense Callahan's anger, his need to assert control, to prove a point. Donovan knew that this was not about him personally. It was about what he represented to Callahan, a disruption of the order he was so desperate to maintain. The door opened, and Sergeant Naomi Fletcher stepped in. She was a tall woman with short brown hair, her expression one of professionalism mixed with concern. She glanced at Callahan, then at Donovan, her eyes assessing the situation. Donovan recognized her type, calm, composed, a voice of reason in the middle of chaos. "What is going on here?" Sergeant Fletcher asked, her voice steady. Callahan straightened. "Found him walking in the upscale neighborhood, acting suspicious. He refused to explain himself, so I brought him in." Fletcher looked at Donovan, her gaze sharp but fair. "Is that true?" Donovan nodded slightly. "I was out for a walk. Officer Callahan questioned me, and I provided my ID. I explained that I live nearby. That was not enough for him." Fletcher turned to Callahan. "And did you run his ID?" "Yes." Callahan replied quickly. "It came back clean, but—" "You still brought him in," Fletcher interrupted, her tone firm. "On what grounds?" Callahan hesitated, clearly uncomfortable under Fletcher's scrutiny. "He was acting suspicious," he insisted. "I was doing my job, keeping the neighborhood safe." Fletcher sighed, crossing her arms. "This man is a high-ranking general in the United States Army," she said, her voice low but clear. "You have brought him in without cause, in handcuffs no less. Do you understand the implications of this?" Callahan blinked, clearly taken aback. He glanced at Donovan, then back at Fletcher. I did not know," he stammered. Fletcher's eyes narrowed. "It should not matter who he is. Your job is to protect and serve, not to judge based on appearances. This is unacceptable. Callahan, release him immediately." Callahan fumbled with the keys, stepping forward to unlock the cuffs. Donovan's wrists were freed, and he rubbed them lightly, feeling the ache from the tight grip of the metal. He stood, towering over Callahan, but keeping his demeanor calm. "Sergeant Fletcher," Donovan said, his voice steady, "thank you for your professionalism, but this is not just about me. This is about how people like Officer Callahan approach their duty." Fletcher nodded. "I agree. We will discuss this further, General Pierce. Rest assured, this incident will be handled appropriately." Donovan looked at Callahan, who still appeared stunned. "I hope this is a wake-up call," Donovan said quietly. "Judging someone by their appearance can lead to mistakes. Dangerous ones." Fletcher gestured toward the door. "Let us take this to my office," she said. "We need to address what happened here." As they left the holding room, Donovan walked alongside Fletcher, feeling the eyes of the other officers on him. He knew this was not over, but it was a start. Conversations needed to be had, changes needed to be made. And if this was the catalyst, then so be it. Back in Fletcher's office, Donovan sat across from her as she began writing a report. Callahan was left standing outside, his face a mix of confusion and embarrassment. Donovan watched him through the glass window, thinking about the long road ahead. It was not just about one officer's actions, it was about the culture that allowed those actions to happen in the first place. Donovan had spent his life fighting battles. This was another one, and he intended to see it through. The fight for respect, for equality, did not end on the battlefield. It extended to every street, every neighborhood, in every interaction. Sergeant Fletcher sat down, her pen looking up at Donovan. "I am sorry for what happened," she said. "We will make sure this does not go unnoticed." Donovan nodded. "It is not about apologies, Sergeant. It is about making sure this does not happen again to anyone." Fletcher nodded in agreement. "We will start with Officer Callahan, and then we will look at the bigger picture. Change does not happen overnight, but it has to start somewhere." The small office of Sergeant Naomi Fletcher was filled with an uneasy silence. Donovan sat across from her, hands resting on his knees, his face calm but alert. Sergeant Fletcher had just finished taking down notes from Donovan's account of the incident. Her pen lay on the desk forgotten as she considered what to do next. Outside, the murmur of the station's activities continued, but in here the tension was almost palpable. Fletcher took a deep breath, breaking the silence. "General Pierce," she began, "I want to assure you that what happened is not how we operate. Officer Callahan's actions were out of line. This kind of behavior is not tolerated here." Donovan nodded slightly, keeping his expression neutral. "I appreciate that, Sergeant, but I have seen this sort of thing happen too many times. It is not about one officer, it is about the mindset that allows this to keep happening." Fletcher's eyes flickered with understanding. She had been in law enforcement long enough to know that Donovan was right. It was not just about one incident. It was about the deeper issues that needed addressing. She had joined the force to make a difference, to uphold the law fairly, and incidents like this made her realize how far they still had to go. General Pierce, Fletcher said carefully, if you are willing, I would like to hear more about your perspective on this, your experience both today and in your career. It might help us understand how to prevent this from happening again. Donovan leaned forward, his eyes meeting Fletcher's. Sergeant, I have spent my life in service. I have led troops, made decisions in combat, dealt with crises of all kinds, and I have faced prejudice, quiet and not so quiet. But today was different. I was treated like a criminal for doing nothing more than walking in my own neighborhood. I have fought for this country, and yet I am seen as a threat because of how I look. Fletcher listened, her face serious. We are here to protect everyone, General, but you are right. Sometimes we let our own biases cloud our judgment. Callahan, he has been a good officer, but this is not the first time I have heard concerns about his behavior. Donovan nodded. It is not just about punishing Callahan. It is about making sure every officer understands that their duty is to protect, not to judge. This kind of racial profiling, it is dangerous. It breeds mistrust. And when the community cannot trust its police, we have failed. Fletcher looked down at her notes. She had always prided herself on being fair, on treating people with respect, but she knew not everyone shared that approach. We will be conducting an internal investigation, Fletcher said. Callahan will be suspended pending the outcome. But more than that, we need to look at how we train our officers, how we engage with the community. Donovan appreciated Fletcher's sincerity. She was not just saying the right things, she seemed committed to real change. Education and training are a start, Donovan said, but it is also about accountability. Officers need to understand that there are consequences for actions like this, not just for the person being profiled, but for the entire community. Fletcher nodded. We are going to start by holding Callahan accountable, and then we will move forward with reviewing our training programs. We need to build trust, not just enforce laws. Just then, the door to Fletcher's office opened, and Officer Callahan stood there, looking hesitant. Fletcher gestured for him to come in. Callahan stepped inside, standing stiffly by the door, his eyes darting between Fletcher and Donovan. Officer Callahan, Fletcher began, her tone measured. General Pierce has explained his side of what happened today. We have run his background, and as you now know, he is a high-ranking officer in the United States Army. Your actions were unprofessional and uncalled for. Callahan shifted uncomfortably, the color rising in his face. I did not know he was a general, Callahan said, his voice defensive. I thought he was up to something. I was just doing my job. Fletcher's eyes narrowed slightly. Your job is to protect and serve everyone in this community, not to make assumptions based on appearance. You brought in a man without cause, treated him like a suspect, and violated his rights. That is not doing your job. That is failing at it. Callahan opened his mouth as if to argue, but then closed it again. He glanced at Donovan, then back at Fletcher. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe, Callahan said quietly. Donovan stood up, facing the officer. Safety is not about targeting people who look different. It is about upholding justice, treating everyone with respect. I was out for a walk, that is all. And yet you made me feel like a criminal in my own neighborhood. That is not keeping anyone safe. Callahan's shoulders slumped slightly. He looked down, avoiding Donovan's eyes. I am sorry, he mumbled. I did not mean for it to go this way. Donovan watched him. The sincerity in Callahan's apology seemed more out of fear than understanding. This is not just about an apology, Donovan said. It is about making sure this does not happen again to anyone. Fletcher stood up, her posture firm. Officer Callahan, you are suspended effective immediately. There will be an investigation into your conduct, and depending on the outcome, further actions will be taken. Callahan nodded, looking defeated. He turned and left the office without another word, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Fletcher watched him go, then turned back to Donovan. We will do better, she said. I will make sure of it. Donovan nodded. I believe you, Sergeant. But remember, this is not just about Callahan. It is about changing the culture that allows this kind of behavior to happen. It starts with leadership. It starts with officers like you. Fletcher sat back down, looking thoughtful. Thank you for your patience today, General. I know it has not been easy, but your words will make a difference. Donovan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day begin to lift slightly. We all have a role to play, Sergeant. Let us make sure we play it well. He stood up, extending his hand. Fletcher shook it firmly, a silent agreement passing between them. As Donovan left the office, he felt a sense of purpose. This incident, while unsettling, was a chance to spark change. It was not just about him. It was about making sure no one else had to go through what he did. Donovan stepped out into the light, feeling a sense of resolve. There was a long road ahead, but at least now he was not walking it alone. The news of what had happened to General Donovan Pierce spread quickly through the police station and into the wider community. Whispers had turned into full-blown conversations. Officers huddled together in break rooms, talking in low voices, some glancing toward Officer Callahan's empty desk. The air in the station was tense, charged with the knowledge that something significant had happened. Callahan's suspension was more than just a disciplinary action. It was a signal that things were changing. Sergeant Naomi Fletcher stood in front of the gathered officers at the morning briefing. Her expression was serious, her tone steady. As many of you know, Officer Callahan has been suspended pending an internal investigation. The incident involving General Donovan Pierce was a violation of our standards. We are here to protect and serve all members of our community, and that includes treating everyone with respect and fairness. A murmur spread through the room. Some officers nodded in agreement, others looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Fletcher noticed the varied reactions, but pressed on. Our actions reflect on the entire department. Incidents like this erode public trust. We cannot afford that. We have a responsibility to do better, to hold ourselves to the highest standards of conduct. One of the officers, a young man named Officer Diego Morales, raised his hand. Sergeant, what is going to happen to Callahan? Fletcher met his gaze. That will be determined by the investigation. For now, he is suspended. But I want to make it clear, this is not just about Callahan, it is about making sure we all understand the importance of our role in this community. Racial profiling has no place in this department. The room fell silent again, the weight of Fletcher's words settling over the officers. She continued, we will be conducting additional training sessions on racial sensitivity and de-escalation tactics. I expect full participation. We have to learn from this and make sure it does not happen again. As the briefing ended, officers filed out of the room, some in deep thought, others whispering to each other. Fletcher watched them go, hoping her words had made an impact. She knew change would not happen overnight, but it had to start somewhere. Meanwhile, General Donovan Pierce had returned to his usual routines, but his thoughts often drifted back to the incident. It was not just about what happened to him, it was about the broader implications. Donovan had received a call from Fletcher, informing him about the investigation and the steps being taken to address the issue. He appreciated her efforts, but knew that this was just the beginning. Donovan received an invitation to meet with the community leaders and police department representatives. They wanted to discuss what had happened and how to move forward. Donovan agreed, understanding the importance of these conversations. The meeting was held at a local community center, a large room filled with chairs arranged in a circle. Donovan arrived to find a mix of faces: police officers, community leaders, local activists, and a few residents. Sergeant Fletcher was there, along with Officer Morales and others from the department. Donovan recognized some of the community leaders, people he had worked with on various initiatives over the years. As the meeting began, the air was thick with anticipation. A community leader named Mrs. Evelyn Harper, an older woman with a kind but firm demeanor, stood up to address the group. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "We are here today because of an incident that brought to light issues we can no longer ignore. General Pierce, we appreciate your willingness to share your experience and to be a part of this conversation." Donovan nodded, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on him. He took a deep breath before speaking. "What happened to me was wrong," he said plainly. "But this is not just about me. It is about how we ensure that everyone in our community feels safe, respected, and treated fairly. It is about accountability." An officer named Garrett Cole, sitting next to Fletcher, spoke up. "We want to do better. We are committed to making changes, but it is going to take time. What do you think we should focus on?" Donovan appreciated the openness of the question. "Start with training," he replied, "not just on racial sensitivity, but on how to engage with the community. Officers need to understand that their role is to protect, not intimidate. And there needs to be clear consequences for those who cross the line." Mrs. Harper nodded in agreement. "Trust is key. Right now, there is a lot of mistrust, especially among minority communities. We need to see that the police are on our side, not against us." Sergeant Fletcher spoke next. "We are implementing new training protocols immediately, and we are reviewing our policies on stops and searches. It is not just about punishment, it is about education and prevention. We want to build a partnership with the community, not create division." A local activist named Riley, who had been quietly listening, raised his hand. "It is good to hear that there is a commitment to change," he said, "but we need transparency. We need to know that when issues arise, they are addressed openly, not swept under the rug. Donovan agreed. Transparency and accountability are critical. This cannot just be about words, it has to be about actions. People need to see that changes are being made, that their voices are heard. The conversation continued, touching on various topics: community engagement programs, regular meetings between police and residents, and the importance of officers being seen as allies rather than enforcers. Ideas were shared, agreements were made, and a sense of cautious optimism began to take root. As the meeting wrapped up, Sergeant Fletcher approached Donovan. "Thank you for being here," she said. "Your input is invaluable. We have a long way to go, but I believe we can make a real difference." Donovan shook her hand. "Change is not easy, but it is necessary. I am willing to work with you, with all of you, to make sure this community is a place where everyone feels safe." Fletcher nodded, a look of determination in her eyes. "We will do it together." As Donovan left the community center, he felt a sense of hope. The conversations had been honest and constructive. There was still much work to be done, but the seeds of change had been planted. Donovan knew that real change would take time, patience, and a lot of effort, but he was ready to see it through, for himself, for his community, and for everyone who believed in justice and equality. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in a while, Donovan felt like they were headed in the right direction. The atmosphere in the police station was different now. Officer Brent Callahan's suspension had sent a clear message, and the morning briefings, which once felt routine, had taken on a new seriousness. There was a new emphasis on professionalism, respect, and accountability. Officers attended mandatory training sessions on racial sensitivity and de-escalation tactics, sessions that sparked uncomfortable but necessary conversations. In one of these sessions, Officer Diego Morales sat with his fellow officers, listening as an instructor from the community relations team explained the importance of recognizing implicit biases. Morales had been on the force for a few years and considered himself fair and just, but as he listened, he realized that he too had made snap judgments based on appearances without even knowing it. The session encouraged officers to reflect on their behavior and think about how their actions could impact others. After the training, Morales caught up with Sergeant Naomi Fletcher in the hallway. She had been organizing these sessions, pushing for real change within the department. He could see the determination in her eyes, but also the weariness. It was not easy changing a culture that had been ingrained for years. "Sergeant," Morales began, walking alongside her, "these training sessions, they are opening a lot of eyes. I have heard other officers talking about things differently now. I think it is working." Fletcher glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "That is the goal, Diego," she said. "We cannot just expect things to change overnight, but we have to start somewhere. Every conversation we have, every officer who starts thinking differently, it is a step in the right direction." Morales nodded. "I have been thinking a lot about what happened with Callahan and General Pierce. I have made mistakes too, maybe not as obvious, but I have judged people before I even talked to them. This training is making me realize that." Fletcher placed a hand on Morales' shoulder. "We have all made mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them and do better. It is not about perfection, it is about progress. The fact that you are recognizing this is a sign that we are moving forward." As they continued walking, Fletcher could not help but feel a sense of hope. The incident with General Donovan Pierce had shaken the department, but it had also sparked something important: self-reflection, awareness, and a genuine desire to improve. She knew there would still be resistance, officers who believed that nothing needed to change, but she also knew that many were starting to understand why this mattered. Meanwhile, Donovan Pierce was experiencing the ripple effects of his ordeal. He received calls and messages from neighbors, some expressing support, others apologizing for not intervening when they saw him being arrested. Donovan appreciated the outreach, understanding that his experience had opened many eyes, not just within the police department. Donovan was invited to speak at a community forum organized by the local neighborhood association. The forum aimed to foster dialogue between residents and law enforcement, to rebuild trust and address concerns. Donovan agreed, recognizing the importance of these conversations. The community center was packed that evening. Residents filled the seats, and a group of officers, including Sergeant Fletcher and Officer Morales, stood at the back. Donovan took the stage, looking out at the faces before him. There was a mixture of curiosity, concern, and hope in the crowd. Donovan began speaking, his voice steady. "Thank you all for being here. What happened to me was a difficult experience, but it is one that has brought us together tonight. I want to start by saying that I believe in the power of community. I believe that we can work together to create a safe, inclusive environment for everyone. He paused, letting his words settle over the audience. But that means we have to confront uncomfortable truths. We have to acknowledge that bias and prejudice exist. We have to understand that safety is not just about protection from crime, but also about ensuring that every individual feels respected and valued regardless of how they look. An elderly man in the front row raised his hand. "General Pierce," he said, "I have lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I have seen it change, but I never thought something like this could happen here. How can we make sure it does not happen again?" Donovan nodded. "It starts with awareness," he replied. "Awareness of our own biases, awareness of how our actions affect others. The police department is implementing new training, but it is not just about the officers. It is about all of us. We need to hold each other accountable. If we see something that is not right, we need to speak up. It is about building trust through action." Another hand went up, this time a young woman in the back. "What can we do as residents? How can we help?" "Get involved," Donovan said. "Attend these forums. Have conversations with your neighbors. Get to know the officers who patrol our streets. The more we engage, the stronger our community becomes. It is about building relationships and understanding." Sergeant Fletcher stepped forward, joining Donovan at the front. "General Pierce is right," she said. "We are committed to making changes within the department, but we need your help. We are your police force, and we want to serve you effectively. We are here to listen, to learn, and to improve." The forum continued for over an hour, with residents voicing their concerns, asking questions, and offering suggestions. The atmosphere was open and respectful, a marked difference from the tension that had filled the air after Donovan's arrest. By the end of the evening, there was a sense of unity, a shared commitment to moving forward together. As the crowd began to disperse, Donovan found himself surrounded by neighbors, each wanting to shake his hand, thank him for speaking up, or share their own experiences. He listened, offering words of encouragement and understanding. He felt the power of community, the strength that came from standing together. Sergeant Fletcher approached Donovan as the room began to empty. "That was powerful," she said. "You have made a real impact. People are listening." Donovan smiled. "This is just the beginning, Sergeant. We have started a conversation, and now we need to keep it going. Change takes time, but tonight was a step in the right direction." Fletcher nodded. "Agreed. We will keep pushing forward together." As Donovan left the community center that night, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The events of the past days had been challenging, but they had also been transformative. The tides were turning, slowly but surely. Donovan knew that there would be more work to do, more conversations to have, but he was ready for it. Change was happening, and for the first time in a long while, Donovan felt hopeful. He looked up at the night sky, stars shining brightly above, and took a deep breath. There was still a long way to go, but he had faith that they were on the right path. A new sense of awareness had settled over the neighborhood and the police department. Conversations about respect, bias, and justice continued to echo in the halls of the police station and in the living rooms of homes. There was a shared understanding that while progress had been made, the work was far from over. Donovan Pierce resumed his daily walks, just as he had before the incident. Only this time, things felt different. The stares that once held suspicion were now replaced with nods of acknowledgement and friendly waves. Neighbors who had previously kept their distance now approached him with smiles, eager to exchange a few words. Donovan appreciated these small gestures. They were signs that his message had been heard, that change, however gradual, was taking root. One morning, Donovan strolled down the familiar tree-lined streets, the leaves crunching underfoot. He passed a group of children playing in their front yard, their laughter filling the air. A woman was out walking her dog and gave him a nod and a warm smile as she passed by. "Good morning, General Pierce," she called out. "Morning to you," Donovan replied, tipping his head in return. As he continued his walk, Donovan noticed a patrol car slowly approaching from the opposite direction. For a moment, his muscles tensed, a reflex from the memory of his last encounter. But as the car drew nearer, he recognized Officer Diego Morales behind the wheel. Morales rolled down his window and smiled. "Good morning, General," Morales said, his tone friendly. "How are you today?" Donovan returned the smile, feeling a sense of ease. "I am well, Officer Morales. Just out enjoying the weather." Morales nodded. "Good to hear. If you ever need anything, do not hesitate to reach out. We are here for the community after all." Donovan appreciated the sentiment. "Thank you, officer. It is good to see things moving in the right direction." As Morales drove off, Donovan felt a wave of gratitude. It was not just about the changes in policies or the new training programs. It was about the shift in mindset, the willingness of individuals to engage and learn. Donovan continued his walk, passing more neighbors who greeted him with friendly nods and hellos. The neighborhood, which once felt like a place of judgment, was beginning to feel like home. Later, Donovan had a meeting scheduled with Sergeant Naomi Fletcher at the police station. She had invited him to discuss the ongoing reforms and hear his thoughts on their progress. As Donovan entered the station, he noticed a different atmosphere. There was a sense of purpose, of professionalism. Officers moved with intent, some of them pausing to greet Donovan as he passed. In Fletcher's office, the sergeant stood to greet Donovan, offering a firm handshake. "General Pierce, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Donovan sat down, appreciating Fletcher's direct approach. She got straight to the point, a trait Donovan respected. "I wanted to give you an update on the investigation," Fletcher said. "Officer Callahan has been formally dismissed from the force. The investigation confirmed that his actions were in violation of department policies. His dismissal was not just about punishment, it was about setting a standard for what we expect from our officers." Donovan nodded. "I think that was the right decision. Callahan's behavior was unacceptable, and his actions undermined the trust between the police and the community." Fletcher sighed, looking thoughtful. "It is not an easy thing, letting someone go, but we need officers who are committed to fairness and justice. We have implemented new training protocols, and we are focusing on community engagement. Officers are now required to attend monthly workshops on de-escalation and cultural awareness. We are also organizing regular community meetings to maintain open lines of communication." Donovan was pleased to hear this. "These are important steps, Sergeant. I have noticed the difference already, the way the officers are interacting with the community. It has changed. People feel heard." Fletcher smiled. "We have received positive feedback. The community feels more connected, more willing to engage with us. It is encouraging to see how a little change in attitude can make a big difference." Donovan leaned forward, his voice serious. "But we cannot stop here. We need to keep this momentum going. It is not just about policies and training, it is about culture. We need to create a culture of respect, where every officer understands that their duty is to protect and serve everyone without bias." Fletcher nodded. "I agree. We have made progress, but there is still more to do. I am committed to seeing this through, and I know others are too." Donovan stood up, extending his hand once more. "Thank you, Sergeant, for your leadership and for taking this seriously. Change is not easy, but together we can make a difference." Fletcher shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, General Pierce. Your courage in speaking out has been a catalyst for these changes. We will not forget that." As Donovan left the station, he felt a sense of closure. The incident that had started with suspicion and hostility had led to meaningful dialogue and real change. It was a reminder that even difficult situations could be opportunities for growth. Donovan was proud of the steps they had taken, but he knew that vigilance was key. The fight for justice and equality required constant effort and commitment.